Okay, now, what we were holding by yesterday, there are 4 concepts I want to go through today. Three of my favorite concepts in Torah. It's remarkable. In Pasuk Tes Vav, on page 370, it's 5 lines from the bottom. So it says, Vayomer Hashem, first Moshe says to the Jewish people, Hashem yilochem lachem v'atem tacharishin. We spoke about that yesterday. Now the Jewish people cry out to Hashem. To Moshe they complain. If you look at 2 lines from the top of the page, it says Vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael al Hashem. There's 2 lines from the top on 370. Vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael al Hashem. To Hashem they cry out. To Moshe they complain. What does it mean crying out to Hashem? Crying out to Hashem means davening, which is the entire purpose of this entire idea of them leaving. There should be more chumashim. The guys bring more chumashim for them. The entire what do you call it? The entire episode is for that one purpose: is to get Klal Yisrael closer to God by crying out. That's exactly what it's for. What does he want Egyptians chasing them for? Hashem could have just gone zap and killed them in Egypt. The whole thing is to get them. So there's nothing wrong with crying out to Hashem. We do that all the time. The whole point, even when, in Israel, Rahman al-Islam is a terrorist attack. Right? So people always say, so what should we do? What should we do? What do you think you can do? What do you think you do? You think they're not doing as much as they could do? Nothing you can do. Guys, nothing. We're absolutely physically helping. You got to increase the presence of the police and the army. But, it's a miracle more doesn't happen. The miracle war. So what should we do? What we should do is we should study more Torah, we should daven harder, and we should do more chesed and be good Jews. That's what we should do. Because we believe anyway that it's all working on miracles. So we have to make the minimal effort that we could possibly make a physical effort. But at the end of the day, there's nothing you can really do about it. What can you do about a 13-year-old kid with a gun? We're going to go search every 13-year-old kid in East Jerusalem. What are you going to do? You're going to search every woman who's perpetrating it there? At the end of the day, the correct response is, we got to, execute that. The correct response is, okay, let the army do what they have to do. But our response as an individual Jew is study more Torah, daven more, do more chesed, and be a better Jew. Don't talk Lashon Hara. That's our response. So here, the entire purpose is they yell out to Hashem. That's good. Then Moshe Rabbeinu says, okay, Hashem will battle for you. You're complaining to me. Stop complaining. Hashem will battle for you. Just be silent. Then in Pasuk Tezvav, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe matitzak elai. What are you yelling to me? Now that's very strange, because up until now, the Jewish people were yelling and didn't say a word about Moshe yelling. They didn't say a word about Moshe. And Hashem says to Moshe, what are you yelling to me? Daber al b'nei Yisrael v'yiso. Tell the Jewish people to start moving. Start moving. So, first of all, remember I told you the story about the chort cover? I told you a little while ago there was a chort cover chassid. A Karliner chassid. The Karliner chassidim, if you've ever been in the Karliner shtibel, they yelled the davening. Right? They daven very loud. So there was a Karliner chassid who once went to the town of Chortkov. The Chortkov Rebbe was the Rebbe of Rabbi Meir Shapiro. Maybe you've heard of the Daf Yomi, the famous Rabbi Meir Shapiro. His Rebbe was a Chortkov Rebbe. He was a very wise man, very sharp man. One time when they actually, Rabbi Meir Shapiro, besides the Daf Yomi, he also established the yeshiva Chachmei Lublin, which was the first yeshiva in Europe that actually had a lunchroom and had a dormitory. Up until that point, yeshiva guys, you think Ohr Somayach, things are rough at Ohr Somayach, the menu's rough over here. In the old days, in Europe, a yeshiva guy, you went to a certain town, and then they assigned you families where you, what they call Essen Tag. You had 8 by days. Each day you went to a different family who didn't have much food to begin with. So it wasn't like you had you're lucky. And there are guys who fell through the cracks. Sometimes they didn't eat at all. And you slept on benches in the local shuls if you find anywhere to sleep. It wasn't like an organized thing. Rabbi Meir Shapiro spent 7 years fundraising in order to build that beautiful edifice, which today I think they eventually, after the war, it turned into some sort of Polish nursing school. I don't know today I think today they retook it. I don't know what the status is today. So he had a Rebbe, the Chortkov Rebbe, and at the grand opening of this yeshiva, they had the Chanukah Sabayis. The yeshiva was finally finished after all these years, and they had hundreds of people were there for the grand opening of the yeshiva, the Chanukah Sabayis. And the Chortkov Rebbe was standing next to the wealthy man who had donated the property for this yeshiva. There was a very wealthy man. So at this grand opening, the Chortkov Rebbe leans over to the man and he says to the man, I envy you your schus. I'm jealous of the merit you have. So the man is like, all puffed up. Wow, the short cover Rebbe is jealous. He says, I don't mean the schus that you donated the land to the yeshiva. I'm not talking about that because, you're getting a lot of prestige, a lot of honor out of that. That reduces your merit. I'm not impressed with that. What I am impressed is that you must have done some other mitzvah that nobody knows about, and that's why Hashem gave you the opportunity to donate the land for that. It's that other mitzvah, that's what I'm jealous of. I'm jealous some mitzvah that you did that nobody knows about, that's the one I'm jealous of. So the short cover Rebbe was very sharp. So this Karliner Chassid comes to his little shtibel, and he says to Rabbi, I'm going to be in your shul on Shabbat. I'm going to be here this Shabbos. Do you mind if I yell during davening? I'm a Karliner Chassid. Do you mind if I yell the davening? So the short cover Rebbe says to him, yes, I mind very much if you yell. Yelling is not davening. And if you must yell, you'll have to find a different place to daven. You can't yell by us. He says, all right, okay. He gets into the town of short cover. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos comes along, and he goes to Shabbos davening. Friday night, the guy is like the Friday night davening, and the guy's just sitting on his hands the whole time, just whispering, I don't know, he's behaving himself. Shabbos day comes, and again, the whole Shabbos, the whole davening, the guy's bursting, and he can't, finally, all of a sudden he finishes, he gets to Nishmas Kol Chai. Right, Nishmas, he goes, Nishmas Kol Chai, and he stops, and he looks at everybody's looking at this guy, and he gets, okay, after davening, he comes over to the Rebbe, he says, Rebbe, please forgive me, I'm sorry about that yell, I was just, the Rebbe says, it's perfectly okay. There are 10 descriptions of prayer in Tehillim. Dovid Amalek uses 10 descriptions for prayer, and one of them is called tza'aka, a yell. So the guy looks at it, it's perfectly okay. So the guy looks at her and says, Rebbe, I asked you if I could yell. You said no. Now I'm yelling and you tell me it's perfectly okay. Well, what's going on? He says, listen, when a Jew comes to me on a Wednesday, and he says, by the way, 3 days from now I plan on yelling. He says, that's not davening. That's yelling. But when a Jew is davening, and spontaneously he's overcome with emotion and a yell emerges from his heart, that's real davening. That's real davening. So Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, what are you yelling? Why are you yelling? Where do we find Moshe Rabbeinu yelling? The answer is Moshe Rabbeinu is yelling internally. Moshe Rabbeinu himself is yelling out to Hashem. Hashem says, now's not the time to yell. Now's not the time for davening. Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'yisou. Tell the Jewish people, and they should start moving. What does that mean? Why do they got to start moving? Don't we do everything? Doesn't davening show what a man of faith you are? Well, it does up to a point. It does up to a point. What's the next point that shows if you're a man of faith or not? You're willing to step into the raging waters, right? Or as they say, put your money where your mouth is. Or as my father, I love to show, he say, put your money where your religion is. Right? My father used to say, you want to show you're from? Let's see you spend money on tefillin. Right? I don't know. Yeah, everybody could talk it. Let's see you do it. Let's see you give up money because of honesty. That shows that I believe you're a religious person. The fact that you wear a gartel and you shuckle a lot, I'm not impressed by that. Let's see you spend on it. When you spend on it, that's the determining factor. You want to say, oh, you're at this level of faith now? You believe? Good. Start going. The famous story, this guy's running, and he falls off a cliff, and he's holding on to a branch. I heard this from a Weinbach, so he's holding on to this branch. And he says, is anybody up there? And he hears a voice. He says, yes, my son. He says, help me, help me. He says, okay, let go with one of your hands. Yeah, but do you believe? Oh, I believe. Say, let's go. He's dangling by this branch over the abyss. He says, Lord, help me, please help me. Are you up there? He says, I'm up here. He says, what should I do? He says, let go with your other hand. Is anyone else up there? You believe or you don't believe? You believe or you really believe or you don't believe? Hashem says, let's see the real belief now. Your belief now translates in action. When you're action, you could daven and you could talk and you could up to a certain point. Now let's see you take the next step into the raging waters. You know the story. This guy's impoverished. It's a powerful story because Hashem, what's a million years to you? Guys, a million years to me is a minute. He says, what's $1 million to you? He says, $1 million to me is a penny. He says, smiles, he says, Lord, can I have a penny? He says, sure, in a minute. You believe or you don't believe? You believe or you don't believe? Let's see it. Put your money where your mouth is. Now, there's an idea they have to go into the water. And the Medrash says that Nachshon ben Aminadov was the first one to jump in, and the water then the water split, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, there's a concept that there are certain mitzvahs for which one must die al Kiddush Hashem. That means for the three main averas, idol worship, immorality, and murder, a person has to give up his life. If an anti-Semite pulls out a gun and says, worship idols or I kill you have to give up your life. And the Gemara says, Chazal say, if a person you're willing to give up your life, we have to give up our life. Certain mitzvahs, we don't ask for the test. Somebody once said to me, Rabbi, would you give up your life rather than worshiping my idols? I said to the guy, would I? I don't know. The question is, should I? I can answer, should I? Should I? Yes. Would I? I hope I never face that test. I can't tell you what I would do. I can't tell. I hope I would pass the test, but I hope I don't face the test. Should I is always the question, not would I. What I personally would do, what I personally would do, that's not an issue. The question is what we should do. We need to know what we should do. So if a person faces that, a person is ready to die, a person is ready to give up his life, and he's hoping for a miracle. He's hoping that God will perform some sort of miracle, that the gun will jam, or that the guy, right? Then the miracle won't take place. If he's not hoping for a miracle, that means he's 100% ready to die, then the miracle could take place. Not necessarily that it will, but it could. Why? Why does it have to be that he's 100%? If you're hoping for the miracle, then it won't happen. It's only if you're not hoping for the miracle at all, then the miracle could take place and the gun will jam, or the guy will have a heart attack, he'll die and drop dead on the spot. Why is that? The answer is because the most basic human instinct and desire is to stay alive. In order to earn a response from God which transcends nature, which is that a miracle takes place, a miracle transcends nature as we understand nature. In order to earn a miracle that transcends nature, we ourselves have to be able to transcend nature. If a person is hoping for the miracle, so you're willing to do the mitzvah, that's tremendous. That's the biggest Kiddush Hashem. A person is willing to die. But as long as the person is hoping for the miracle, that means he hasn't gotten beyond his own nature. Because the most natural thing is to hope to stay alive. If a person could actually get to the point where he says, you know what, I'm ready to die 100%, I'm not thinking about a miracle at all, then he's transcended nature. Therefore, nature can be changed for him. You understand? And by the way, it's not a game. It's not like, okay, Hashem, I'm 100% ready to die. Where's that miracle? No, that means you're still thinking about the miracle. Right? You can't psych him out. That means he's got 100% be willing to die, then the nace can take place. So when what do you call it? Where Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah are thrown into a furnace, and they don't die, they don't burn, because they're willing 100% to die. That's why they didn't die. Daniel is thrown into a lion's den, and lions don't eat him. That means he's 100% willing to die. That's why there's a miracle. If Avram Avinu goes into the furnace and he doesn't burn, it means he was 100% willing to die. If it was 99%, then he dies. Because he's hoping for the miracle. He can't be hoping for the miracle. Okay? Now, the sea splits, and you have over here one of the biggest, there are all sorts, there's a listing, by the way, if you get a hold of the Me'am Loes in English, there's a listing of 50 miracles that take place at the sea. This week's Parsha is a very, very fascinating thing. The 50 miracles that take place at the Yam Suf for the Jewish people. But one of the biggest miracles of all, is that, first of all, what is the miracle? And if you look at Pasuk Chaf Aleph, it says like this, on page 372, verse 21. Vayet Moshe es yado aliyam. Moshe stretches his hand out over the sea. Vayolech Hashem es hayam beruach kodim aza kol halayla. There's a strong east wind blowing all night. Vayosem es hayam lecharava. It dries up the land. Vayiboku hamayim, and the water splits. Now, the first thing over here is that there are different opinions exactly what it looked like, that the water split. But it says openly that there was an east wind blowing, a strong east wind blowing. Now, I don't know, there have been a lot of winds over the sea. The sea is often very windy, right? You could get windy out at sea. Have you ever seen the sea split? Have you ever seen, take a cup of water and blow in a cup of water as hard as you can, You're going to see the water, it's going to split into two, and it's going to split into 12 different paths so the Jewish people can walk through. The fact that the wind is blowing, so you get the Bible critics and the skeptics who come like, see, it was a natural occurrence. Yeah, when's the last time this natural occurrence took place? And when has it occurred since then? When have you ever seen the splitting of the sea since then? Number one. Number two, this begs an even bigger question. Water would not split the sea. Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do it? He does it because the skeptics, if you want to be a skeptic, like always, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tries to bring the miracle in within the realm of nature as much as possible. The miracle, if there could be a miracle, it says later on in the Torah, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, go up on the mountain and look into the land of Israel. And Moshe Rabbeinu sees the entire land of Israel. Gentlemen, I got news for you. You can stand on any mountain, you're not going to see the entire land of Israel. Right? It would be no different if Moshe Rabbeinu was standing on a mountain or sitting in a valley. What he sees is beyond nature to be able to see the entire land of Israel. So why does he have to go up on a mountain? Because in our minds, going up on a mountain helps you out in this sort of thing. If you want to see out to the distance, you go up to a mountain, you can see out to you can't see the entire land of Israel from any mountain. Right? So what does going up on the mountain help? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu limits the miracle as much as possible within the realm of nature. The same thing Noach building an ark. Hold for a few minutes, Noach builds an ark. Right? Why does Noach build an ark? I told you, the amount of food that you need just for one hippopotamus for a course of a year, the entire ark couldn't hold it. Hippos eat a lot. Right? And then you got elephants, and you got rhinos, and you got all sorts of lions. The ark couldn't hold all the animals, and it couldn't hold all the food for the animals for a year. A year's worth of food for bears, and for hippos and rhinos and all that. So why did it build the ark at all? The answer is that the miracle is still as much of nature that can be remained. What we call nature, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu limits the miracle as much as possible. So the wind blows, so you should see the cause of it. But where is the miracle? The miracle is because it's at the moment that Moshe Rabbeinu points, that's when it happens. That's a pretty good trick, isn't it? That's a pretty good trick. You point, the wind blows, and all of a sudden the sea splits. So you know what the other miracle is over here? The other miracle is it says openly that look at Pasuk Chav Gimel, 2 lines later. First of all, it says Vayavo b'nei Yisrael b'soch hayam bayabasha. They come into the sea. V'amayim lahem choma mimina mimisrael. The land became a wall on the right and on their left. And the Medrash says that the water at the bottom froze. So that otherwise you get on the sea is pretty deep. It's going to be difficult to walk down and walk up. And it says that it didn't smell like the sea. The sea could make you throw up. Just the terrible smell of the sea. And it says that with all the ruckus, none of the women miscarried. I mean, could you imagine how many Jewish women were pregnant and not one woman miscarried? And there were all sorts of fruits trees growing out of the side so they could grab a fruit and feed each other. The Midrashim talk about all the wonderful miracles that took place. But the biggest miracle of all is look what then happens. Pasuk Chav Gimel. Vayirdufu Mitzrayim vayavo acharem kosus parich bo farosha v'otochem. All of the Egyptians follow them into the sea. They all just go prancing into the sea. I understand something. Let's say you're an Egyptian, right? Even the Egyptians got to use some logic, right? Mimonavshach. Let the thumbs go up over here. You saw the sea split. You see the Jewish people go in. Now you're an Egyptian. Now, what are you thinking? If it's a natural occurrence, well, if it's a natural occurrence, the same way the sea could split, it could all of a sudden close in on you. So that's not a logical thing to do. If it's not a natural occurrence, you mean it's a miracle happening for the Jewish people? Yep. You just went through a 10-step pan of miracles, right? Mm-hmm. And you saw what happens when good things happen to the Jews and bad things happen to you. So what are you thinking? That's the miracle. The miracles that they weren't thinking. They just go racing in with no forethought of, hey, not even one kid in the back said, hey, Paro, maybe this ain't such a great idea. Nobody said that. Nobody said anything. Just go racing in. Just go racing in. But the commentaries, by the way, the commentator asked, and what happened to all? This was the punishment for the Egyptians. If you take a look, it says, Kol sus paro richbo, they all go, the horses, everybody goes running in. So the commentaries ask, well, what happened to all this? This was a punishment for that generation of Egyptians. Well, what about all the Egyptians that have been torturing the Jewish people throughout the other 8 generations? Right? They all died already. There are plenty of Egyptians that had died of natural causes. Mm-hmm. So when do they get their punishment? Their kids get it. But what about them? What about them? There's a Medrash, I think it's a Medrash, that says they came back reincarnated as the horses. They were the horses that went running into the water. And then they go into the water, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu floods them, and they drown. And what happens to the Jewish people? You're seeing your enemies drowning, and the entire point of the enemies drowning and the enemies being punished is all in order to point out God's glory. That the Jewish people see there's a God in the world. It's not the happiness, oh good, I hope it hurts. Right? It's not a sadistic happiness. It's the happiness of seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu's justice in the world. Now you're seeing pure justice in the world. You sinned, you punished, you hurt us, and now you're getting paid back precisely. And then what did the Jewish people do on 374? Oz Yashir Moshe Uvnei Sos Asher Azos. They sing this song. And spontaneously the Jewish people start singing Oz Yashir, which is Ruach HaKodesh that everybody into. If I would say, okay guys, let's sing a song together. Let's make up the lyrics right now on the spot and sing it together. We all just start singing together. Well, that's pretty good that we all know exactly what we're going to be singing. Right? So if I'd say, row, 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 everybody joins in, row your boat. Yeah, that's fine, Or if I say, Dovid, Melech, he says, everybody knows the words. But if I start making up a song right now and you start singing with me, we've never sang this song before. So how did you know what to say? How do we all sing together? And all of a sudden, everybody, all Klal Yisrael together, Oz Yashir Moshe. So the Gemara says, we see from here, what does the word Oz Yashir really translate to? What is the word Yashir? What's the form of the word Yashir? Then it says, here he changes, he translates it, they chose to sing. But the word Yashir, if you translate it purely, anybody knows Hebrew here? Yashir, that's Usher with an ayin. Will sing is a future tense. Yashir, Oz Yashir Moshe, they will sing. Says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, this is one of the places we see proof from the Torah that there's going to be a Tchias HaMesim. Oz Yashir. Shar lo nemar doesn't say they sang. Yashir, they're going to sing in the future. Where it says we see from here, there's a Tchias HaMesim. So I'm going to tell you a beautiful story. The Belzer Rebbe, the Belzer Hasidus, they were decimated in Europe. And they came to Israel. And after they came to Israel, you're talking about people got out of the camps and people lost their families and everything else. They had the very first Tish. The Rebbe, it was in Tel Aviv. The Belzer Rebbe, Rav Aaron for Belz, was in Tel Aviv. There was a Frum community. To this day, they're Frum Jews, but there was what do you call? There were a lot of shuls in Tel Aviv back in the day. So the Belzer Hasidim were in Tel Aviv, and the Belzer Rebbe, gathered them together. They had the very first Tish. So you're talking about survivors. You're talking about people lost their families, everything. And at the very first Tish, one of the survivors, he said to Rebbe, tell us, how are we supposed to be able to go on? How can we possibly go on? How can we possibly go on? After the devastation and the families were, where are we supposed to, how do we pick up our lives? Where are we supposed to get any energy to carry on? So the Belzer Rebbe said to them, the Jewish people got out of Mitzrayim. And we said yesterday, how many got out? 1/5 got out. 4/5 of them were killed in the plague of darkness. That means everybody who got out probably had family members that died. 4/5 of the Jewish people died, so the 1/5 got out. How long was it before this event over here? How long was it? A couple of months. And people lost entire families, and here they are. And then they got to the point, Oz Yashir Moshe, they all sang together. How were they able to sing? Were they able? The answer is from the very lesson of Oz Yashir. There's a belief in Tchias HaMesim. There's a belief in the resurrection of the dead. Then you're able to go on. Then you're able to sing. He said, we all survived, those of us that managed to survive, but there's going to be a Tchias HaMesim that's going to energize us. The guy said, Rebbe, Dichantani, you finally gave me, finally we've gotten comfort, consolation. So the Jewish people are able to carry on. Now, the Egyptians drown. And then after the Egyptians drown, so then what were the Jewish people doing? They were standing there at the sea, and the Gemara says that the Egyptians, in the ancient armies, when they used to go out to fight, they used to bring out all their valuables with them. They used to bring out gold and silver and valuables and ornaments and everything else. Why did they do that? It was a reminder to them. It wasn't only the Egyptians. The ancient armies used to bring out, what are you bringing all your gold with you for? It's a reminder what you got to live for, what you got to fight for. So when you went to war, you brought your gold as a reminder, hey, it's worth staying alive. Fight hard. So the Egyptians brought their booty with them, And what happened at Yam Suf? After the Egyptians were drowned, it was like Jewish people at a Kiddush, right? Start gathering gold and silver. There's gold and silver to be taken. And the Chazal say, the Gemara says, the booty at the Yam Suf, what they took in at Yam Suf was more than even what they took when they left Egypt. It was free gold, silver, all that stuff. That's what the Jews, can you imagine what that looked like? Imagine what that looked like. Imagine what it looked like at a kugel, when there's kugel at a Kiddush, right? This is gold, silver, and it's Jews. Can you imagine what that looked like? With hundreds of thousands of Jews gathering in fistfuls of money, free money, free gold. So yeah, there's a god, there's a diamond. Could you imagine what that looked like? Then take a look in Pasuk 3a, page 380. 4 lines from the bottom. Vayasa Moshe es Yisrael miyam suf. Look how the article translated. Moshe caused Israel to journey from the Yam Suf. Vayasa means he pushed them. Take a look at Rashi. On Pasuk, where's Rashi? It's a left column, 3 lines from the top. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Vayasa Moshe. It doesn't say Vayisu b'nei Yisrael. It doesn't say the Jewish people traveled. It says Vayasa, Moshe travelized them. He forced them to go. Take a look at Rashi. He Sion Bal Korchan. He made them go against their will. Why was that? She'atru Mitzrayim esusei betachshite zav v'kesef. They had adorned their horses with silver, gold, and silver. Va'avanim tovos, in precious gems. Umargolios. V'hoyi Yisrael motzidos bayam. Ugdola haisa bizas hayam. The booty at the sea was greater be bizas Mitzrayim. Oh. Next, skip to the next line. Leficha chutzach le'asiyan bal korcha. Therefore, Moshe had to move them against their will. Moshe, come on, guys, let's go. Oh, just 1 second. You know, we're still grabbing. You know, let's go. Right? It's like the guy. It's like the guy pushing people out of the Kiddush on Shabbos. Okay, finish up. No more. No, come on. I gotta lock up. I gotta close up. And everybody's still grabbing at the cholt. Another hit at cholt. Another some more kaya. And then somebody's moving them out. You know, you're pushing the Jews out. You're still grabbing as you're going out. And Moshe Rabbeinu, so Jewish people are not too happy. You're moving us away from the Yam Suf. There's another opinion here. You know why he has to move them away? They just saw a demonstration of divine intervention. The Chazal say, what a maidservant saw at the Yam Suf, even the greatest prophet Yechezkel didn't see. What did Yechezkel see? What was the famous prophecy of Yechezkel? He sees the Maisa Merkava. He sees God's throne. In the most the intent, whatever God's throne means, it means at a certain level of intensity of prophecy. What a maidservant saw at the Yam Suf, even Yechezkel ben Buzi didn't see. That's how deep the intensity, the experience of divine prophecy was at Yam Suf. Oh, you know why the Jewish people don't want to leave? At its plain level, yeah, we're gathering money. So another, I don't want to leave a spot where I just saw God's intervention in the most intense form that could ever been experienced, and now you're taking me out to a desert? I'm not so interested in going. Moshe says, let's go. It's still God's will that we leave. Even though this is the place of Kedusha, and this is a place of intensity, it's still time to leave. We got to move out because we're heading for Har Sinai to receive a Torah. Wow. And therefore the Jewish people are resident. Now, this is one of my favorite vorts in the Torah because it's so real in human nature, right? It's so real. Take a look at Pasuk Chav Gimel. Vayavo Marasa, they came to a place called Mara. Marasa is they add the word the tough in order to extend it. V'lo yachlu lishtos mayim mimara, they couldn't drink water from Mara, ki mariim him, for they were bitter. What was bitter? The water was bitter. They couldn't drink the bitter waters of Mara. Al kain karashma Mara. And then now you have Jonathan, here's what you're, Vayilonu amal Moshe lemor manisha, so people start complaining, what are we going to drink? Listen, you've been traveling for 3 days in the desert, and you got nothing to drink. We can understand a complaint. That's understandable, right? Now, the plain meaning here is that, well, the waters were bitter, and Moshe pulled them away, and Moshe pulled away, the waters were bitter, they couldn't drink, so Moshe takes a step, he cries out to Hashem, and Hashem says, take a piece of wood, and he throws it into the water is sweetened. And Chazal say that it was bitter wood that he threw into the water. It was olive wood, which is bitter. He threw it in. And that was also a miracle. That the bitter wood makes the water, the bitter waters better. Some say it was a piece of wood from Gan Eden that was sweet. Whatever it was, he threw a piece of wood in and it changed the water. Whatever it is, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. But I saw the Kotzker Rebbe. The Kotzker Rebbe was known for his very sharp little quips. In the Parshas he said, the people could drink water from Mara, ki morim hem, because they were bitter. Who was bitter? Yeah, the plain meaning is the waters were bitter. Says the Kotzker, the people were bitter. The people, what are you bitter about? Again, you're bitter that you moved us away from free. You're bitter about they took us away from Yam Suf where things were really good, whether physically or spiritually. They took us out here, we're bitter. And the Kotzker said, sure, they couldn't drink it because the waters were bitter. So it's such an insight into human nature. When somebody's upset, generally in life, when somebody, the way my wife puts it is, when somebody is disproportionately upset. Right? Somebody's disproportionate. Somebody, husband, father walks into the house and he gets really upset because the lights are on, right? Or the mother's upset because really upset because somebody didn't make their bed. He gets really not making the bed is bad, not the worst thing in the world. It's not a crime. Leaving a light switch on is not the worst thing in the world. Somebody gets upset because somebody squeezed the toothpaste and didn't cap the toothpaste. And they go, what's really bothering you? What's really bothering you? And often in life you find out that when a person's getting upset, that's not what's bothering you. Something else is underwriting. You're bitter about something else. That's why you're turning bitter over here. The waters are bitter. You sure the waters are bitter? Right? Something that people are complaining about something. I usually know, you can tell with students, when a guy's having trouble interacting with other people, there's a lot of clash, he's got personality clash with somebody, what's really bothering you? I got burned real bad once. Ooh, this was bad. It was my early days of marriage. So I come home from shul, and I said to my wife, had a bit of a confrontation in shul. She said to me, what happened? I said, well, a couple of guys were talking during davening. I told them to stop talking, and things got a little hot. She said to me, what else don't you like about them? Ooh. Like, what makes you think there's something else? I said, well, because if they're good friends of yours, you wouldn't have told them to stop talking. Yeah, I mean, you were looking for something. You finally got your excuse. And often you find when people are arguing about something, that's not the real issue. There's some history there. They had a beef about something else, and all of a sudden it came out over here. Two guys are fighting over a parking space. Oh yeah, that's the real problem? Or is it a problem because last week you were at a din Torah over some money that he owes you? What's really bothering you, the parking space or the money from the din? Yeah. And when the stock market is up, all of a sudden nobody gets upset about light switches and squeezed toothpaste in parking spaces. How do you like that? All of a sudden nobody's upset. Stock market, I told you, statistically I'm sure more kids in the world get spanked on days the market is down than on days the market is up. Father comes home and says, you know what he did? He glued his sister to the wall. Get over here. And that means the market is down. Because if the market is up, you go, that's my boy. It's a different reaction. It has to do with what's really underlying it. What's really bothering you? Something else. That's not what's bothering you. And that's what it says, Kibarim. It's so true. It is so true. It is just so true about human nature. That let's get to the real issue here. Okay. What do you call it? So now Moshe Rabbeinu, the water is bitter. So he throws in a piece of wood. And the water gets what do you call it? The water gets sweet. Now, one last point, very quickly. The Parsha is loaded over here. Parsha is loaded. And then the Parsha talks about the mun. The Jewish people gather in the mun, and the what do you call it? They gather in the mun, and the mun could taste like anything. I'm sure you've heard all the stories about the mun was this miraculous food that falls down from heaven, and the people gather it, and then you can imagine it to be anything you want, and even the texture. Even the texture change. They have now this Impossible Burger. Have you heard of the Impossible Burger? The stuff that I've actually had some substitute meat. I haven't had the Impossible Burger, but I've had this other meat substitute, which was okay. The texture was okay. The taste didn't quite make it, but the texture was pretty close to meat texture, as opposed to the standard soy burgers, which have nothing in common with burgers whatsoever. But this what do you call that? The Impossible Burger, I'm curious about, because people have told me that it does taste like meat and it even bleeds like a burger. So that I could what do you call it? I don't know if they have them with a hechsher.
Yeah, in America.
They do have it with the Hechsher. Yeah, that I'd like. Well, I'm going to America tomorrow. We'll see. Maybe I'll get an Impossible Burger. We'll see if we can track one down. So take a look at page 390. Take a look at 390. Right at the bottom of 390. So the Jewish people get to a place called Refidim. And once again, the people are complaining about no water. Right? And they start complaining, and this is the first time Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, take a staff and hit the water. Take your staff and hit the water. And Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock, hit the rock, and Moshe Rabbeinu hits the rock, and out comes the water. And then, towards the end of this entire episode, they have water, and now they have what to drink. If you look at the bottom of page 390, 4 lines from the bottom. Vayikra Shem HaMokom Masa Umeriva. Moshe calls the name of the place quarrel and contention. How does the Art Scroll translate it? He just transliterates it. But Al Riv B'nai Israel, because of the contention of the Jewish people, Val Nasosa Mes Hashem, and because they tested God, Lamor, Hayesh Hashem B'kirbayinu Imayin, is Hashem in our midst or not? You know, the Jewish people shouldn't have any doubt by this point. And their complaining has got a tone of grumbling. They're grumbling, and the underlying issue is Hashem with us or he's not? Look at the very next 2 words. Vayovo Amalek. They're attacked by Amalek. Now that's very interesting that right now Amalek attacks. But if you stop and think about it, if you look at the numerical value of the word Amalek, what does it come out to? 240. 240. Amalek, that's pretty fast, Mayor. Come here. I think it's 240, which is the numerical value of what word? Of suffix, which is doubt. Because the essence of Amalek is to throw a doubt into God's intervention in the world.
That's the first gematria I've ever loved.
Yeah, he fell in love with the gematria, all right? The what do you call it? The Amalek is the same gematria suffix. What does that mean, though? What does that mean at a deeper level? What that means is that the Jewish people have just come off of an 11-game winning streak. Yeah, you had 10 Makos, 12 games, splitting of the sea. You have the Mun coming down. And by the way, do you know that the Medrash says that when the sea split, all the water in the world split? Ever hear that? All water in a... Can you imagine the guy's having a drink? And some guy living in Kansas City is drinking, and the next thing you know, it runs down both sides of his mouth because the water in his cup split. And another guy sits down in a bathtub, and as he sits down to ready for a hot bath, he sits on cold enamel, right? Because the water in the bathtub split. And there's another guy who's doing an Olympic platform dive. Yeah, that's bad. That would be real bad, yeah. That would be real bad. And as he goes down and does his triple double throw with a double pike, whatever it's called, at a 3.7 degree of difficulty, the difficulty factor gets even more because the water in the pool splits, right? Yeah, I hate when that happens, yeah. Yeah, so all the water. So the whole world knows about this. And after these streak of miracles, all of a sudden Amalek attacks. What are you attacking for? So the Medrash compares it to a boiling hot mikveh. It's a boiling hot bath. Everybody's afraid to go in. Why? Because you know that if you go in, you're going to get burnt. Amalek's willing to jump in. They get beaten in this war, but they cool off the water. They cool off the water. There's an aura of invincibility about the Jewish people right now because the world is convinced that there is divine intervention on behalf of the Jewish people. And Amalek comes along and goes, come on. It's a 12-game, it's a 12-step coincidence. They throw a doubt into the entire mind of the world. That's what Amalek does. When does Amalek show up? This is what's remarkable. What did the Jewish people just end off with? What the pasuk before said? Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. Is God in our midst or not? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like all fathers through history, what did your father say to you when you want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about. Didn't your father ever say that? You want to kvetch? I'll give you something to kvetch about. You want to complain? You got nothing to do? I'll give you something to do. You never heard any of those lines? Did you ever hear any of those? That one, yeah, right? It's got to be one of those. That's what they teach you in father school, right? You got nothing to do? I'll give you something to do, right? Some lady once said to her daughter, if you got nothing to do something for somebody else. That's a good line. You got nothing to do, so do something for somebody else. Nothing to do means I got nothing to do for myself. So think about somebody else. Comes along a coach and says, oh, you want a doubt? I'll give you a doubt. You have a doubt? I'll give you a doubt. You have some Amalek, right? Is Hashem in our midst or not? Oh, you don't know if Hashem's in our midst, like Meir says. It's like Gematria suffix. Oh, you got a suffix? Here, have a little bit of suffix. Have some Amalek, right? Have some Amalek. Have some Haman. Have some Hitler. Have some anti-Semites. There you go. You had a suffix, so you've triggered off suffix through Jewish history. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying. Gentlemen, oh, by the way, Torah Anytime people, I will be away. I'll be in the United States, so I will not be giving the shir. Somebody much more qualified will be giving the shir over the next 2 weeks, and then I should be back a week from today. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Next 2 weeks from today, I'll be giving the shir again. Amir Tzashem. All right.